There are new travel restrictions and limits on public gatherings around the world as the holidays approach and COVID infections spike. The fast-spreading Omicron variant is to blame. And now the Johnson & Johnson COVID vaccine's been linked to rare blood clots and 9 deaths. The CDC is recommending the Pfizer or Moderna shots. The AP's Ben Thomas has more on what the CDC is saying.
The recommendation comes after advisors to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention reviewed new safety data about rare but potentially life-threatening blood clots linked to J&J's COVID-19 vaccine. The clotting problem has caused 9 confirmed deaths, while the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines don't come with that risk. Further, the advisors say the Pfizer and Moderna vaccine also appear to be more effective. Of the 200 million fully vaccinated Americans, only a small fraction, about 16 million, received the J&J shot. I'm Ben Thomas.
TikTok says it's working with law enforcement as it investigates online posts warning that some schools would get shooting and bombing threats today. Officials, though, say these posts are not considered credible. School officials in some states are increasing police presence, though. Those states include New York, Illinois, Arizona, and Pennsylvania. President Biden says, yes, his $2 trillion spending bill is stalled, but he says it will pass. The AP's Mike Gracia.
The timetable for Senate passage of the Democrats' roughly $2 trillion.
Reverend Dr. Hatch is going straight to voicemail.
No, just keep trying him. He generally answers just after 6.
In a statement Thursday evening, President Joe Biden said he and his team will continue discussions with Senator Joe Manchin of West Virginia next week. Manchin has become the key figure, holding out to cut the bill's price tag and eliminate programs he opposes.
This is AP News.
And if we don't get him, just go to Dr. Knighton, please.
Now to Broadway. Okay, maybe not, says the AP's Oscar Wells Gabriel.
The newest coronavirus variant has derailed Broadway just as it's trying to get back on track. The spread of the Omicron variant means the show will not go on as usual on Broadway. One of the biggest productions being shut down is Hamilton. It will be dark through the end of the work week. Other shows that have scrub performances this week include Harry Potter and the Cursed Child, Tina, Into Cloud, and It has been dark since Sunday on Tuesday. The variant has also caused the revival of Cabaret, starring Eddie Redmayne in London's West End district. I'm Oscar Wells Gabriel.
More Americans applied for unemployment last week, but the number is still historically low. Claims rose by 18,000 to 206,000. Altogether, 1.8 million Americans are on unemployment. That's down from the previous week. I'm Rita Foley, AP News.
This is 8:20 a.m. WCPT Willow Springs and streaming worldwide at WCPT820.com. We are Chicago's progressive talk, where facts matter.
Everybody, how you doing this morning?
Chicago traffic update.
Grand Avenue, E30, 142 is blocked in both directions between 21 and Village Road due to the crash. Seeing a little bit of congestion now on the inbound ride approaching downtown Chicago. Congestion, not too heavy. 12 minutes is your downtown Chicago. Outbound is building on the inbound Stevenson ramp to the inbound Ryan. Overnight work is wrapping up on outbound I-57 from past the Calseg Kettle to Kedzie. Ramps at Sibley are set to reopen. You get traffic on the inbound Kennedy. It's a 17-minute trip time from O'Hare to downtown with the new roadwork layout taking place after some overnight construction. That's traffic. I'm Calamonte.
The holidays are here, and you can achieve gifting greatness with Omaha Steaks. Perfectly aged, tender, unforgettable.
Okay, my people, how you doing today?
Sizzle into the search bar and save over 50% with the perfect gift package for just $99.99. You'll get 24 entrees plus 8 Omaha Steaks burgers free with your order. Incredible flavor, value, and we've all heard the reports about shipping delays.
We have got a lot to talk about today. The Omicron variant, milder, but it's highly transmissible and resistant to vaccines. We're going to be talking with our team about this, Dr. Shanita Knighton and Dr. Deborah Holden. What we want to find out is what we can do to protect ourselves, because the headlines are frightening, to say the least. But there's no need, I think,
right now our country feels divided, but there's a place where people are coming together.
Need to be informed.
I was nervous to talk to someone so different from me.
How much time do we have, Paul?
Love has no
30.
Thank you.
step are helping people with different political views, beliefs, and experiences connect through conversation, and it feels good.
This conversation gives me hope.
It gives me a lot of hope.
Take a step toward bringing our country and your community together.
15.
Conversation at lovehasnolabels.com.
Just keep me up until I get this sound off. Thank you.
Love Has No Labels and the Ad Council.
Because facts matter. You are listening to W520.
We can change the world, change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Santita Jackson Show. It's a joy to be with you today, 1 week away from Christmas Eve. I cannot wait. You know, I love this. Is like my favorite time of year. I love it, love it, love it. I am the Christmas girl. I'm Santita Jackson with you on Friday, December 17th, 2021. And we're coming to you from WCPT, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, and AM 950 radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. I want to hear your voices today. Call me at 773-763-9278, 773-763-WCPT. I want to hear what your thoughts are about Build Back Better and voting rights and the police reform. All of these issues that Democrats won on, got 80 million votes, and we're stuck. We're stuck. And the problem is we are now moving into 2022. We are here, the midterms. If we do not get this stuff passed now, these issues that were driving so much political and social activity last year, if they don't get passed now, when will it happen? Will we keep a majority? Will the Democrats keep a majority in the U.S. Senate? Will they keep a majority, however thin, in the U.S. House of Representatives? If they do not, what will that mean? And you heard Mitch McConnell, Senator McConnell from Kentucky, say, look, I've been trying to get Manchin to come over to my side for a long time. And then I heard former Minnesota Senator Al Franken say, you know, he is really a Democrat. I mean, I've talked to him, I've worked with him. Of course, he was in the Senate. He said, so, you know, I like him, you know, and he is from a red state and he's a Democrat of a certain stripe. The thing is, though, we've got some real blue problems. We've got the blues, everybody, and we need some help. And so to let someone who is a corporatist Democrat drive the Democratic, the populist, progressive, really the people, this is the people's agenda. I just think it's crazy. And so I want to know what your thoughts are. Call me at 773-763-9278, 773-763-WCPT. It's not crazy. It's just bad-minded. It's just bad-minded. And we're still letting the oligarchs drive the rest of us. And that is what is happening here. And so, you know, hey, everybody, please, please, please call me at 773-763-9278, 773-763-WCPT. And Paul, Reverend Hatch is trying to call in, so just reach out to him because we're going to get good news from him in a hot second. Let me get some of these headlines, though, off the table for you. In Chicago, we're going to have a high of 38 degrees, still no snow, everybody, mostly cloudy. Minneapolis, St. Paul, 22 degrees and cloudy. The Dow closed down 29 points yesterday. The S&P 500 closed down 41 points, and the NASDAQ closed down 385 points. In the NBA, the Timberwolves will be playing the Lakers tonight, and, you know, our Bulls are still on rest, praying for them to get well and be better. And the NFL, well, the Kansas City team beat the Chargers 34-28. And tonight, the Chicago team will be playing the Predators in the NHL. And last night, well, the Wild fell to the Sabres. The Sabres 3, the Wild 2. Build Back Better verges on collapse as Senator Manchin is attempting to kill the child tax credit, everybody. That's a headline. Will the $1.7 trillion Build Back Better bill go through? Many people are saying that it won't. What will that mean? 773-763-9278, 773-763 WCPT. The Supreme Court Justice Neil Gorsuch has sent the controversial Texas abortion law to a conservative federal appeals court to determine next steps, a move that all but suspends abortion rights in the state and perpetuates concern that the high court could gut the tenets of Roe versus Wade. What do you think is going to happen with Roe v. Wade? Will it be gutted just like affirmative action? We're going to see. President Biden is warning of a winter of severe illness and death for those who are unvaccinated against COVID. Joe Biden said on Thursday, we are going to have a winter of tremendous discontent, severe illness, and death for those not vaccinated against COVID. We're going to ask Dr. Shanina Knighton and hopefully Dr. Deborah Holden about that, because we're finding that the vaccines that we have are not as effective against Omicron. So how do we navigate with all of this information? And now we see that the CDC is recommending that Pfizer and Moderna vaccines are much better than J&J vaccines. That's right. They are the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention yesterday recommended Americans choose to receive one of those two vaccines, Pfizer and Moderna, authorized over J&J's shot due to rare but sometimes fatal cases of blood clotting. We've been hearing about these blood clots for many, many months now. So we will see what's going to happen. This move comes after a panel of outside advisors voted to recommend directing Americans towards the mRNA vaccines for protection against COVID-19, meaning the shots by Pfizer BioNTech or Moderna in the United States. What do you think, everybody? 773-763-9278, 773-763-WCPT. America's schools are stepping up security amid shooting and bomb threats on TikTok, everybody. As educators announced plans to increase security in response to TikTok posts warning of shooting and bomb threats at schools all around the country today, as officials assured parents that the viral posts were not considered credible. Are you going to school? Wow, everybody, please be careful. Claudette Colvin, the 15-year-old who refused to move to the back of the bus in Alabama months before Mrs. Rosa Parks did, both of them courageous, one a girl, one a woman. Well, in the 66 years since that happened, Claudette Colvin has had a record. She has technically been, as the old song by Frankie Lyman and the Teenagers said, she's been a juvenile delinquent. Well, now, no more. Her record has finally, 66 years later, been expunged. What do you think about that, everybody? And it was expunged by a judge who is an African American, and she said that made her feel so good. Judge Calvin Williams of Montgomery, Alabama, who wasn't born when this happened, said, I want to thank you for your courage, your courageous act. I want to, on behalf of myself and all of the judges in Montgomery, offer my apology for an injustice that was perpetrated on you. What Ms. Colvin did has such great significance, and that's because it holds such great symbolism. God bless Claudette Colvin and thank her for her work. So much of who we are as Americans today is due to her courageousness as a 15-year-old. I think we've got Pastor Marshall Hatch on, do we?
No, Dr. Knighton.
Okay, well, call Pastor Hatch, please, because he is reaching out to me because he wants to get on to give us some good news. But let me go to Dr. Knight. How are you, Dr. Knighton?
I'm doing good. How are you?
It's great hearing your voice today. Great hearing your voice. What is going on with the vaccines? We are seeing that, the Army and the Navy, now they're preparing to axe 2%. They're letting go 2% of their active force for refusing to get the vaccine. And we're seeing that the J&J vaccine is, they said it's rare, but it does cause blood clots that can result in death. I don't know how rare that is, but we don't know the exact numbers. They said it's more than 50, but we'll have to see. But we're also seeing that we're seeing a real push. The president has said we are looking at a winter of death. Really, it's a very, 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 very frightening prospect that he laid out for us. And now we're seeing that the Omicron variant is resistant to the vaccines that we have. Please help us to understand what happened with this Columbia University study. And there's a study that came out of the UK at the same time. What's going on?
Okay. So, Santita, I was going to say in regards to the study, I will be honest, I've seen both of them, but not really prepared to break it down to the audience to be able to explain to them this morning. The only thing, honestly, that I can really tell people is that I understand the level of confusion. I understand them being upset because we are a long way away from being told a year ago when people were asking the question, what is the best vaccine for me? And the answer unanimously from people was, it doesn't matter which vaccine you get. Take whichever one is available. And now there's all of this information now about which one is effective. And now people feel bamboozled because now it's like there's a preference over which one that should have been taken. And, you know, there are safety concerns. And these are the same safety concerns that people had a year ago. And so, to me, even now, I understand where people are mentally withstand. And I said this before. I said we're experiencing science on a live stage. So when we're getting reports, right, or we're looking at these scientific studies, it's not refuting the studies whatsoever. It's not saying what's false, what's true. So we've seen studies coming out for the past year, right, of something being more effective than others. The J&J vaccine was resumed because the clots were only happening in a very minimal amount of people. Well, now it's, they are, it needs to be possibly stopped or not considered because the clots have continued. And it's like, okay, when we look back at when that vaccine was paused and the amount of individuals that got it after it's been paused, you say to yourself, how many people have risked themselves to possibly getting clots because it was presumed that when it was resumed that it was safe. And so it's a time of confusion right now. Commenting on what you mentioned about not Dr. Fauci, but Biden talking about it's going to be a winter or death.
Yeah.
People are getting sick, and people are getting sick at the same alarming rate. So when I think back to early 2020, late 2019, when it seemed like everybody was getting sick then too. And I'm just being honest. And so we are back to that because habits have rolled back. We're back to that because you can go somewhere and where we had a comfortability, and I'm saying collectively, that grocery store carts were being cleaned on a regular basis. When you knew that touch pads were being cleaned, you knew that the places for which you resided were trying to take care of their establishment, their employees, and also taking care of you. I hate to say it, but that's not the same thing anymore. A lot of these people, because it wasn't in their budget or they ain't got no PPP money or, like literally they just decided that, having infection prevention products and protocols is not a part of their budget, they've rolled back a lot of those practices. And voila, we see those practices roll back. Now we're facing flu. We're facing, RSV, which popped up heavy cases over the summer, which is respiratory syncytial virus. And it happens commonly amongst babies and older adults. You're seeing a common cold. You're still seeing individuals before, whereas mask, there was this big push for mask mandates. And you're seeing in some states where it's ruled unconstitutional to make people wear masks. It's unconstitutional to make kids have masks. And so we're starting to see an uptick now because before, remember when people were asymptomatic and they were told, don't go get tested if you're asymptomatic because we didn't have tests available. Well, it was also a thing where kids wouldn't get tested, were not getting tested because kids were not at school. Well, kids go back to school, so they're no longer virtual. A lot of these kids didn't have access to, let's say, a vaccine or they wasn't educated on how to be safe if they returned among their peers. You got educators that were then having to be what I would describe infection prevention police while also trying to be educators. So we had all of this stuff that was going on at one time, including the fact that people was, even protesting that it was unconstitutional for children to wear masks, even though a lot of them couldn't get vaccinated, right? So we're looking at all of these factors that are going together now, and we're starting to look at the unintended consequences of the fact that we have not been doing a good job about educating the public regarding infection prevention, also educating the public regarding the purpose and premise for the vaccines. So it's like with the media and with things that are coming out, we're in shock and awe collectively, because sometimes you're looking at what the media put out and you say, that's not what that study said. And this is the truth. I mean, you look at it and you say, well, if this is what the study said, why didn't they also talk about the limitations of the study? And when I say the limitations of the study, that means every single study is never going to be perfect. So when we talk about limitations, what about that study wasn't perfect? And just like people are obligated to know the good results, they're also obligated to know, well, this study has limitations, meaning maybe it wasn't tested in a lot of people for us to say that it's generalizable, meaning that this is something that applies to the public, right? Because if a study came out and it only looked at 20 people, but we're talking about a population of 330 million, are you going to say, oh, this study was effective and it means something for the whole population? Or are you going to look at it and say, oh, the results of this study can be limited because it was only done in a particular setting? And so I want us to look at things, and we have to start trying to figure out how do we educate ourselves on how to look at the science. So we do understand, does the science match what it is the results say? Is someone pushing, a narrative, meaning that it's biased? There's a possibility of science being biased. It is. I hate to say it, but it is.
Well, I mean, when you look at the news, they're heavily sponsored by Big Pharma. So trying to, we're not getting news as much as we are getting press reports. And,
exactly.
Because I'm seeing that, conservative radio, for example, has seized upon this information and they're going down the street with it. I would urge everyone, don't pay attention to that. Don't pay attention to radio either. Pay attention to the numbers and to what these viruses do and how you can protect yourself. This show, because my thing is, look, of people being cowed by fear. It's not right. We should be told how we can protect ourselves, Dr. Knighton, and that is not what we're being told.
And that's it. And that's where I'm going with this. The reason why I mentioned, my thing about not getting into a particular study. So as a scientist, I have a responsibility to do a critique and to not communicate information just based off of one study, but just understand that one study, it tells us what we know right now, but it's also looking at it cautiously and saying this could change tomorrow, or understanding that because science is not supposed to be polarized, it's not supposed to be biased, just like I can find a study for something, I'm sure I can find a study again. Mm-hmm. And then with me finding one on the other end of the aisle, if I'm comparing to both of those studies, what are they saying? What are they saying that's good and what are they saying that's bad, and how is this applicable to people? And then where do we go from there, right? I've seen studies that were huge, They were looking at one that it was for Cleveland Clinic at one point, where they were looking at 54,000 employees and looked at the risk factors or the odds of them getting COVID again after having COVID. and found that they had a lesser chance of getting COVID than somebody that was vaccinated.
Well, hold on.
Those were the results.
Which leads me here.
So,
Omicron is supposed to all of the studies that we're hearing about says that it is more transmissible than Delta, but far less deadly. In fact, it presents as the fluish symptoms, a cold, a very, very bad cold, and all of that. We're seeing from studies as they're being presented to us, correct me if I'm wrong, that the vaccines that we're using in the United States, because they use different vaccines all over the world, that they are not as effective against the Omicron variant. Because I'm trying to figure out why I think we should be concerned about everything, but Delta is still the predominant variant and it is more deadly. But we're ginning up fear on Omicron. How do we protect ourselves? What are we supposed to do? I've got 2 minutes here.
Okay, so just really quick, and I just have to address this, okay? So when we talk about alpha, beta, gamma, Delta, Epsilon, Zeta, Theta, Iota, Kappa, like going all the way through the Greek alphabet, however that go, right?
Mm-hmm. You're going back to our being online.
That's it.
That's what we have to learn.
I will tell you this. The thing is, when you got the flu vaccine annually, it protected you against the dominant strains that were deadly, but not all strains, okay? So this whole notion that we are looking for something to be the end-all, be-all is very upsetting because that is not the case. And it's never going to be the case, especially when we are still using the same vaccines that had to be mass-produced in December of 2020, when, again, these strains are evolving and these strains are changing. And so what you're finding in the media is that based off of the manufacturing that was done and the studies that were done starting March of 2020, these are the same vaccines from back then. And so as you're starting to see in science, this is effective against this, it's not effective against that. They're looking at the same vaccine to see as the strains emerge, are the vaccine still effective against certain strains. And so I just want to caution people that as we possibly make it to the Omega variant and then start back over at, alpha, just to keep going around in the same circles, we have to just remember that as it changes, your hand hygiene practices shouldn't change. If you are sick, you should still be wearing the mask. If you're going somewhere to a crowded environment and you don't know people's status, you should be wearing the mask. But most importantly than anything is making sure you are washing your hands, making sure you are conscious about what you're doing with your third hand, which is your cell phone. Your hands is what are naturally going to carry droplets to your eyes, mouth, and nose. And once it enters your eyes, mouth, and nose, this is how it travels to the rest of your system for you to get COVID. I also want to remind people, too.
I've got 30 seconds.
There was such thing as being asymptomatic. And asymptomatic means that you did not outwardly display symptoms. Whether you are tested or not, assume that you are an asymptomatic carrier and carry yourself as such so that way you don't have to worry about transmitting something to somebody else unknowingly. If everybody carries themselves and assume that they are already infected, but they are fighting, you will take better care of your hygiene practices, you will take better care of your diet, and you will consciously think about what you are doing so that way you are protecting yourselves and protecting others.
Stay right there. You know what? I have about 5 minutes on the other side. We've got Dr. Deborah Holden with us. I want you to speak to this on the other side as we move into the political segment, because we've got to talk about Build Back Better, child tax credits, and the challenges that are facing Democrats and really you as we go into 2022. Because we've got some radical problems and we do not need mild solutions to those and all of that on the Santita Jackson Show. We're going to have Reverend Dr. Marshall Hatch on. I'm going to work out the time with him because you do need a good word today after all of this. Back with more of the Santita Jackson Show in just a few minutes. Okay, Paul, could you put Reverend Dr. Hatch on, please?
He's here.
Okay. Reverend Hatch?
Hello, good morning. How you doing?
Good morning. You know what? We try to get everybody up by 6. so that we can do a sound check, because I don't like to do a sound check when we're on the air. Would you mind if I close the show with you today?
That'll be great.
Okay, because that way, you can take us into the season. So what we will do, Paul, if you would get him up by 7:50.
Okay.
Battle of Chickamauga.
And then I will bring you on at 7:53, at 7:52, and you'll have 4 minutes.
That'll be great.
Is that okay?
Absolutely.
So we're just going to move that time around, because I do want people to hear from you today. Okay?
Glad to do it. Okay.
Thank you. Thanks. So we'll be calling you at 7:50. Paul, can you write that down?
Yes.
Okay,
And we
thank
also
you
have
so
Attorney
much.
Jones on now.
We have Attorney Jones, and do we have we have...
Calling Mr. Flowers right now.
Okay, thank you. Attorney Jones?
Hey, good morning.
It's wonderful hearing your voice. Where are you today?
I'm back in Maryland.
I just didn't know. I had to ask. But before we come to you, I've got Dr. Deborah Verholden, brilliant epidemiologist. She's kind of like a home girl from Baltimore. Got her PhD from Johns Hopkins at 24 in epidemiology, and she is the associate dean for public health at Michigan State University School of Medicine. We've been talking with Dr. Shanina Knighton, registered nurse, research clinical scholar at Case Western Reserve University. And she is an infection preventionist. Most of us don't know what an infection preventionist is, but I'm so glad that we have her. Dr. Verholden has access to some of the finest minds, really, in the health space. And she's brought her to us because she said what's missing from our conversation is infection prevention.
Mr. Flowers is on the line.
So, Gary Flowers.
Good morning.
Mr. Man of Omega Psi Phi. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to give these two brilliant women who are on my show just every day. I've been directed, really, the person who heads up our, say, the health space for the Santita Jackson show is Dr. Deborah Verholden. And she is PhD from Johns Hopkins at 24 and brilliant. She's at Michigan State's medical school. She is developing their School of Public Health. She's their Associate Dean for Public Health. And I've got an infection preventionist. Most of us don't even know what that is, that it exists. This is a registered nurse and a research clinical scholar at Case Western Reserve University, Dr. Shanina Knighton. They need to be on your show because you need to talk to people about how to be safe.
Please connect me.
Send you information. And I know they are like, what is this woman doing? Yep, because you need to be talking to people. If we're not going to wait on corporate media to take care of us. And I can tell you, Dr. Deborah Verholden, Dr. Verholden, is she still there?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yeah.
I need to respond to what you heard from Dr. Knighton in about 5 minutes. If you can be inside of that for us. Okay. Because I can tell you one of my people here, I wish I had kept this. She said, fear, Hannah from South Carolina. I took the J&J out of fear of dying or getting others sick or worse and responsibility. Lord help us all. Wow. We're just getting a lot of information that is conflicting. I would think that we would be happy at this time that the Omicron variant is not as deadly. All right, here we go.
Change the world. We can change the world. We can change the world. Change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love. It's not too late. Gotta save the children. We can't wait. Let's change the world.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Santita Jackson Show, Friday, December 17th, 2021. We're talking politics today, everybody. Build back better. Voting rights. Will we be able to get that through? I want to know what your thoughts are. And if the Democrats don't come through, if they let Joe Manchin hold it all up, what's going to happen in 2022? But what's going to happen to you? What's going to happen to you with your vote? What's going to happen to you with child care tax credits? And on and on and on. Not just one person one entity, and that's corporate America, because that's really what he is. He stands in for the oligarchs. We're going to be talking with Gary Flowers from WREJ from Richmond, Virginia. Brilliant talk show host. With us, and of course, Attorney Darrell Jones, chair of the Transformative Justice Coalition. We're so excited that he is with us today because he and Attorney Barbara Arnwine and the Transformative Justice Coalition and the community of Brunswick have been in Georgia. Really, they have been vigilant, really standing with Ahmaud Arbery and their family, his family, and getting the word out. But before we get to them, Dr. Deborah Holden is with us. We are getting gobsmacked with this information about the Omicron variant. I have to tell you, on one level, even though it's far more transmissible than Delta, because we're hearing that it's so much milder, it allowed me to exhale, if you will. But then we've got the president telling us, if you're unvaccinated, you're facing death. That was not comforting. He's the comforter in chief. We're hearing that the vaccines, as we know them, are not, at least the ones that we're taking in the United States, that they're not as effective against the Omicron variant. But I take comfort in the fact that the Omicron variant doesn't behave like Delta. What are we supposed to do with all this information, Dr. Deb?
I think it's too much of the wrong information, to be honest. You don't know what variant of flu you get infected with. But I guarantee you what, the flu mutates every year. The flu vaccine that you're getting is based on the flu predominant strains from the year before, and it works. It has a certain degree of effectiveness. This overemphasis on what strain or what variant is taking us away from the very basics of it don't matter which strain of COVID it is. None of them have figured out how to penetrate through a mask. That I know. But we're not talking about that. Even this notion that, and don't get me wrong, I realize it's like a little bit of a sigh of relief that maybe this Omicron variant won't cause as much illness and it'll just be like getting a cold, but maybe not. Or even better, maybe that'll be the dominant strain for the next 4 months. And then that one will mutate and it'll spread more easily and it'll have some tweaks somewhere on the molecule that'll make you sicker than Delta. Like we are just looking for something instead of taking the very basic things that we've learned about how to prevent the spread of infection and integrating them into our daily lives and getting them baked in to the systems and the structures and the environment where it matters. Why have we not upgraded all of the air handling systems at schools and in workplaces? Why have we not really looked at, do we really now potentially just need to have a masking season? Why didn't we say, okay, we were able to flatten the curve by getting people to shelter in place and we had to provide some economic support, some business support, some other things for that to happen? Why didn't we just do that consistently, reliably at a federal level for 6 months? We have gone all this whole pandemic and still have yet to have a federal mask mandate when the mask has been the primary protective factor to prevent the spread of infection from a systems level. So we won't do the things that we know to do because it's inconvenient. So what we've done is we've dragged it out, and now we're trying to vaccinate our way out of it, which we're not going to be able to do. So, yes, everybody wants to talk about the variant, and I've, shared with people I was infected. I got genomic sequencing done. I, in fact, had the Omicron variant. But what difference really does it make? What really difference does the particular variant make? Which more important is, how do we prevent the spread of this infection? How do we integrate what we've learned about that into our day-to-day lives? And how do we live with this thing? Because now it's endemic. It's not going anywhere. So that's the real question I think we would be looking at. How do we live with it?
Well, I'm hoping that you'll be able to, you can bend the conversation this way. Of course, we've got Gary Flowers on, and I just, during the break, said, he's from WREJ in Richmond, Virginia, which is the most prominent radio station in that part of, in the DMV, actually. And it's Black owned and all of that. And he's going to have you on his show so that we can talk about how to live with this. We can't live in a silo or in our closets. That's not going to work. But there's a way to prevent these infections. And so I want you to follow Dr. Shanina Knighton on Instagram, drnina.preventionist. drnina.preventionist. She has these quick videos. She has these cards that show you how to wash your hands, what you need to be doing, what you need to be mindful of. And we have her because of Dr. Deborah Holden, because she said, look, there are different things that we need to look at while we are here, while we're looking at our health, public health, personal health, all of that. And I can't thank you enough, Dr. Deborah Holden, because we would not have known. I mean, because, all of this is very unsettling, getting this information all the time. You just don't know what to do. Because now people are going to work today and you don't know what to do. And it's impacting how we even interact with people, Dr. Verholden. I mean, just how are we going to have the Christmas party? Are you vaccinated or not? And you're saying, wait a minute, you need to know if someone's COVID positive or not. We're not there. We're not there. So I've got 1 minute. Dr. Verholden, what's the final word for us this morning?
I just encourage people. I understand there's a lot of information coming at you, and people don't have to distill and filter that information out for themselves. The most important information I think that people need to be holding on to right now is how to keep you and your family safe and how to prevent you and your family from becoming infected in the first place. The cool thing is a lot of the prevention strategies that we use for COVID also protect you from a whole lot of other things. So let's go back to Mama's age-old wisdom. Remember you had to come in the house and wash your hands before you ate dinner?
Absolutely.
Remember how we did that? Remember how your mom said, keep your hands off your face. Get your hands up your eyes like that. We need to go back to some of that good age-old wisdom. And now as the holiday season approaches, I'm not telling people not to get together. We've had a lot of time in isolation. It is not the optimal way for human beings to operate. The healthiest, longest living human, the centenarians of our society, have three features in common. They, one, eat a lot of raw foods, and mostly their proteins come from things that come out of the ground or things that come out of the sea. They move their arms and legs a lot, and they live in communion with one another. So us interacting with each other, us touching and hugging and interacting, and the cues that you get when somebody looks at you that way and it warms your heart. There's all these things that we're missing and getting so much less of because of the current state of affairs. I'm not saying that people can't get together, but you got to do it in a smart way. You can't have these large gatherings in your little teeny house no more. You just simply can't do it. Mm-hmm. And you can't have the cousin that's out here freestyling and wilding and doing what they want to do and always bringing strangers. They can't do that this year at the party. Why? Because your kid may have diabetes or your child may be immunocompromised, or grandma might be there, and grandma's getting up to that age now where her health is not the same as it was 20 years ago. So you got to just be mindful. You've got to plan those get-togethers, and then you've got to have those upfront conversations where everybody's being responsible. You can have your 1, 2, maybe even 3-person household get together where it's safe, where you're not spreading infection, but you're spreading love.
How about that?
That fellowship that humans need so desperately. We need that. I admit that. And so let's just do it in a way that's safe and responsible and honors the fact that we're in a pandemic and we are mostly resisting living with it. And what you resist persists.
Dr.
So when we stop resisting it, we'll be better off.
Dr. Deborah Verholden, Associate Dean of Public Health at Michigan State University School of Medicine, with us every day. Dr. Shanina Knighton, infection preventionist. Ladies, stay right there because we're talking politics now. I had to reach out to my mighty, mighty man of Omega Psi Phi. That's right, Q Psi Phi. And Gary Flowers. He was the senior vice president at Rainbow Push, but now, and he's gone on to do so many great things. He has one of the most exciting shows, one of the great mouths of the South, from WREJ in Richmond, Virginia, everybody. You don't want to miss his show, which comes on right after mine. And, of course, we've got attorney Daryl Jones. You all have been asking for him to come back. And so I said, let me find him. I got him. Transformative Justice Coalition. He's the chairman of their board. We're so excited to have you all here. We are now in 2022, gentlemen and ladies. If you want to weigh in, Deborah, because you know you want to. I know Dr. Knighton has something to say too. Build Back Better verges on collapse as Manchin attempts to kill the child tax credit. It turns out he doesn't mind. He said, okay, I'll take the 1.75. It was 16 trillion. It went down to 6. Then it went down to 3.5. Then he knocked it down to 1.75. He and Senator Sinema. And now this child tax credit, which has helped to bring down child poverty by tremendous numbers. He wants to get rid of that. Now, Jamal Bowman out of New York, the congressman, says, we have a false choice between Senate action on Build Back Better or voting rights. It seems like we're being made to make the choice, and I'm thinking that that is going to bother or anger the base. Let me start with you, Gary Flowers.
Not only will it, first of all, thank you, Santita, for the opportunity. And my sisters, thank you for your expertise this morning. And my brother Daryl, thank you for your continued work on the Transformative Justice Coalition. We have ourselves at a precipice in American history. We have the rise of fascism as exemplified by the loser of the last election. And yet, in these perilous times, there is capitulation on the part of Democrats that have reduced, like you said, Santita, a $16 trillion piece of legislation to 1.75. Nonetheless, what is left is still worth fighting for. And there are real provisions in this bill that people need immediately, and yet Joe Manchin, masquerading as a senator but representing the wealthy in this country, stands to put another hold on this promissory note. And so we are at a very prescient time in society, and there needs to be a reckoning. Now, two things have to happen, I believe, at the same time. We have to change the political structure in this country from the two-party winner-take-all system. That's more of a horse that's running on a longer track. The shorter track is to put pressure on Joe Biden as president to push this legislation through what's left of it. And those things have to happen at the same time.
Attorney Daryl Jones, you have been on the ground. You've been on the ground with people. And you saw how Ahmaud Arbery's family just really chased out Jackie Johnson, the prosecutor who was trying to help the McMichaels. I mean, as you shared that story with us, it's just been stunning. So we see what people power can do. What do you make of what is happening? I mean, because now, I'm just hearing more people on the ground, not in the DMV, not in DC, Maryland, and Virginia. People out here, the voters, the 80 million, who are like, are you kidding me? What are the Democrats doing? We might not have the majority after the midterms. We've got to make hay while the sun is shining. What do you see?
Santita, let me first echo what Gary said. Thank you certainly for having me on the show. It's always enjoyable to be with you, and certainly enjoyable to represent the Transformative Justice Coalition and bringing some more information to the community. And, Gary is right on point. Here's what we see on the ground. What we see on the ground is people care about hand-to-mouth issues. Can I feed my family? Can I feed myself? Can I meet my obligations? And what they are recognizing, for instance, and we can lift up, Brunswick and Ahmaud Arbery, because one of the things we know is that Brunswick is one of the, if not the poorest municipality in the state of Georgia. And what has been the response of everything in Brunswick on top of all the poverty has now been the suppression of the vote, as Georgia now becomes central, ground zero for some of the voter suppression techniques that are in place. So people on the ground are wondering, what is the party in power? You control everything. You control the Senate. You control the Congress. You control the presidency. What are you doing to help me feed my child? What are you doing to help me alleviate my student debt? And if you have both going on, if you're a young parent and you have the student debt and you have the difficulty of feeding the family, what are you doing to help? That's the question that's being posed right now. And right now, it just looks like it's falling short. And going through what we see happening with President Biden at this point in time, it's like he's trying to switch the goalposts. First he was pushing Build Back Better. We can't do voting rights. Now he's had problems with Build Back Better. So now they're looking back to voting rights. Maybe we can do this. Well, as Gary knows and your other guests know, we have been pushing voting rights all along. This is something that should have already been done. We shouldn't be arguing getting it done in 2021. It should have been done earlier. So people on the ground are looking at this, and the question is, if we give you the power, we give you everything that's involved in the Congress, and you can't get it done, why should we continue to trust you? That's the reason why they need to get both of them done. And I think that that Congressman Bowman in New York put it best. They can do both bills, and they got to do both immediately. Show the progress, show the leadership, get it done. And we see progress being made. We know that the senator out of New Hampshire, Senator Maggie Hassan, who was opposed to anything dealing with regards to carving out any exception to the filibuster, has now changed her position. She wants to get it done too. This is the time right now, but they can't play with it. People on the ground want to see what's happening for me. It was Tip O'Neill, Santita, that once said, and I hold it true to this day, all politics is local. And the question is, what are you doing to help me and my family? That's what's happening on the ground.
Call us at 773-763-9278, 773-763. WCPT Josephine Hamilton Perry says this stalling is for the purpose of beating down the Democratic Party for the midterm. Gary and Daryl, it feels like, the problem, first of all, it was the progressives, because they were not just going to fall in line with the corporate Democrats. I mean, it's always the people are always the problem, Gary. You knew that from your work with Rainbow Push. The people are the problem. I'm like, no, y'all are the problem. And you're not meeting our needs. And it is very hard, as you know, Gary, to go back out here and ask people to vote for the party when they don't come through.
Absolutely. And democracy percolates up. Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King was right when he said that people can make good decisions if they're given good information. And we have to, from our vantage points, that our microphones have to give good information. But at the same time, this is Friday, people may be playing bid whist or spades tonight. And the Democratic Party has a chance, at least had a chance, to run a Boston, the presidency, the Senate, the House, and yet they are calling board. And you're right, Santita, it is hard to energize people, whether it's in Brunswick, Georgia, in the voting belt there, or in Kalamazoo, Michigan, to keep voting for people who they don't think are fighting for them. Now, what are our choices? Some would say, well, Flowers, I hear you saying that, but we don't have a choice. There's either Democrats or the Republicans. Yes. But we also have a long-term plan that we have to enact, and that is thinking outside of the political box and making a more meaningful system in this country that responds to the needs of ordinary people.
Attorney Daryl Jones, what do you say? I mean, you and Attorney Barbara Arnwine, I mean, you really are at the vanguard of our voting rights. And like you said, it's almost been a year. Why are we still arguing about this while we are watching state after state gerrymander the people out of power? Where do we go from here?
And Santita, you're absolutely right. And that's one of the biggest concerns, because as these districts are being redrawn, as the redistricting is occurring, we're seeing the lack of representation of people in Congress, because, of course, what happens is that the representatives end up drawing districts where they can select their voters rather than their voters selecting them. That's the major concern. The other concern that goes on here is this. what we learned in 2020 was that young voters came out in droves in record numbers during a pandemic to vote and put representatives in office. They're looking for the return on their work, and they're not seeing the return. And so, and that becomes the concern. And so, what has to happen is that you've got to keep your, there's an old saying that you dance with the one that brought you, right? So if it's the young voters and the minority voters, the black voters, voters of color, people of color, voters of color, et cetera, that brought this change to the country, now is the time for the administration, for Congress to address these issues, to address these concerns. That's what's happening, and that's the problem that as I see it. How do you meet this? Well, it seems fairly straightforward. We know that when President Biden wanted the debt ceiling raised to protect the full faith and credit of the United States, he had numerous meetings with members of Senate to use the bully pulpit to do it. It's time to really pull Joe Manchin in, Kyrsten Sinema in, and really apply the pressure that the presidency can apply in those areas. We've had a wonderful partnership with the Rainbow Push Coalition, as well as with Black Voters Matters and William Barber with the Repairers of the Breach. Everyone is saying the same thing. They're pushing for those workers. They're pushing for fair wages. They're pushing for those that are at the bottom of this railing, whose needs are not being met, that they voted these folks in, and that they're not having their votes honored. They're not having their policies put in place. In order to turn this around, in order for this country to continue to move forward, that's got to be turned around. One of the most offensive things, I think, to have happened was I think it was a week or two ago, was for the president to hold this international global summit on democracy and to want to tell other countries what should be done to strengthen the democracy when we're struggling right here. We need to focus on us. We've got to focus on the United States. And so, that's what I see that we need to do.
And Brother Darrell?
And what can you say? Yes.
Brother Darrell, if I can add a friendly amendment, there was a Washington Post article 3 weeks ago that read, the title read as follows: Have Democrats come to the limits of white appeasement politics?
Yes.
Joe Biden was 0 for 32 in political primaries until William Clyburn helped him in South Carolina for a couple of years ago. The point I'm making is that Joe Biden was never the people's choice, and yet they nominate him. The Democratic Party nominates him because of white appeasement politics. And so the structure of the Democratic Party is not set to win. The structure of the Democratic Party is appeasing a portion of their electorate that really is corporate driven. And so that's not a recipe for winning. We saw the same white appeasement politics in Virginia. Terry McAuliffe was finally defeated here. And so the structure of politics has to change in this country. Reverend Jackson did not go to the Democratic Convention in 1988, to appease white voters or to celebrate the status quo. He changed the structure of politics. We have to revisit that sort of mindset.
How can we hear you today and every day, Gary?
Yes, please go to our website, rejoicerichmond.com, and you may also go to Facebook and type in the word Rejoice 101.3 FM. I air every morning on the Gary Flowers Show at 9 a.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Eastern to 11 a.m. Eastern.
As soon as I'm done, 10. He is picking up the baton and running. I love it. I love it. Gary, I know you've got to go do some show prep. Attorney Jones, I hope you stay with me because we have got to continue this conversation. We really, really do. Want to know what your thoughts are, everybody? Call me at 773-763-9278, 773-763-WCBT, and let's talk about where Democrats go from here. Not just Democrats, where does America go from here? Voting rights. That ensures the rights of all, everybody. It's not just for black people. No, no, no. Build Back Better builds back better for everybody. The thing is, we need to build back right. How about that? We have to get this right, everybody. Get it right. Eliminate poverty. Equal access to high quality health care, housing. That's a basic human right. We need to go on and go forward. More of the Santita Jackson Show in just a few minutes. Hello, hello. Go see me for a little while. I know you got a lot to do.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Everybody's glad that you're back.
Santita, thank you for the opportunity.
Oh, sweetie, and you know what? I'm going to get Doctors Knighton and Verholden to you because they need to be on your show and your audience need to know who they are.
Please do. Please do. Hug your mother and high five your father.
Do that. He's going to say, why is he should have me on his show. You know, he is. Bless his heart.
Well, that ain't nothing but a thing.
Well, you know, he just got that honorary doctorate from Cambridge this week.
Yes.
Bless his heart.
And I talked to Shelley the other day, so it's well earned.
Well, it's for everybody. It's for the work that you've done because he's not done this work alone. You know, this is our work. And so he accepted it on behalf of everybody. It's a blessing.
That's right. All right. Much love to you.
Much love to you. Have a great show.
Okay, dude.
You know, because, I mean, Attorney Jones, the work is ongoing. It's ongoing. And it is, I mean, but when I look at voting rights, I'm like, really? We're still talking about this? It's almost been a year, Daryl. What? This is crazy.
No, I mean, you're absolutely right. I mean, there were so many different snags that we ran into with many of the senators, many of whom were hiding behind Manchin as well as Sinema, that were opposed to anything dealing with touching the filibuster. And so they were hiding behind them so that they wouldn't have to, face the repercussions of denying people the right to vote. I mean, it's just been horrible. I mean, now some of it is being unveiled, and we certainly see more senators that are coming forward and are being, openly supportive of some of the changes. But it's just been horrible.
Oh, I mean, they've been awful.
Yeah.
They've been awful. They've been awful. Let me address something that I'm seeing here on Facebook today. Sometimes we get trolled. I get that too. And Yilma, I hope it is. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. You say you never talk about current Ethiopia situation. Why? I'm not ignoring it. There are so many issues that I'm asked to discuss every single day. And I do my best to try and hit as many issues as I can. There are lots of them. I have lots of stickies all over. You don't see them right here about issues that I want to talk about. That the supply chain disruption. Many people are saying that is not because we can't get the boats into the docks in California, but we're seeing corporate America really try to squeeze Americans. That's an issue. We have issues all over the continent of Africa, all over Asia and the subcontinent, the countries in the subcontinent of Asia. I mean, really. There's just a lot that I would love to talk about. So why don't you do this? Send me messages, because what I try to do is put out information for everybody. But right now, Yilma, we are walking into, as you and your brothers and sisters from Ethiopia and beyond look at what's happening in the United States, there's a lot of internal housekeeping we've got to do. I mean, I've not been able to really deal with the Daunte Wright trial. I've not been able to deal with the Waukesha because if you look at the news, there were a lot of other things happening at that moment too. So I do the best that I can, and I'm here to serve you. And just let me know, and if you have an issue, call in. Yes, we're grown people here, and be a grown person, and you don't have to just troll here. Call me at 773-763-9278, 773-763-WCPT. Call me. I can take it. And so can you. As my grandmother Helen used to say, God rest her soul, if you can't take it, you can't make it. And I can make it because I can take it. So call me here at 773-763-9278. And let's talk about what is on your mind. And I'll respond to you as best I can. Blessings. All right, everybody. We have got the chairman of the Transformative Justice Coalition, with us today. And James, I see you. Just call in. Just call in. I mean, because you're still listening, clearly. So just call in. That's all you need to do. And I will not have disruptions on this discussion chain. Now, we're not going to respond to trolling. You can participate or not. But if you're going to participate, you participate in a certain spirit. And that does not mean that you have to agree with me. But it's not going to be ugly. We have enough of that out here. When we talk about gun violence, we've got verbal violence. That's where it all starts. It starts in your heart and in your head. So I'm not going to have that here. If you have an issue, put it out there, but also call in. Call in. That's what you need to do. You need to call in. Call in. Call in. And make yourself known. How about that? Always have to do a little housekeeping, Daryl. Still excuse me. Because one of the things that I feel obligated to do, Daryl, is to keep the atmosphere as clean as I can keep it. I didn't want to enter this space, this talk show space, the way most people do. I mean, it's mean, it's aggressive, it's unkind, and it does not accomplish anything. People talk at each other, they bark at each other. They're not, and many of the people who you listen to on talk radio, their personalities are 180 degrees from what you're hearing on the radio. They are actors. Okay.
1 minute.
Thank you. Who do we have, Paul?
Mr. McKee and Attorney Jones. Commissioner Johnson needed a moment.
Okay.
And it looks like Dr. Verholden's still on the line.
Okay, great. Dr. Verholden, do you want to say anything? You're more than welcome to jump on in, right?
Yeah, no, I'm just listening. Just listening. Let the experts speak on their topics. I love it. I love it.
Well, you're an expert on public health, and no one's talking about that.
Yeah.
In a pandemic. I think that's crazy. I'm sorry. That's nuts. Yeah. There's a lot of nuttiness going on here while we've got the majority. Nuts. But hello, Dwight McKee, let me hear you. Dwight.
Hello.
Okay. Attorney Jones, let me hear you.
Hello.
Okay, very good. I'm just trying to make sure that we can, because I don't want to clear that up when we're on the air. We're coming up.
Change the world, change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Santita Jackson Show, coming to you from WCPT, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, and AM 950 radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. It is Friday, December 17th, 2021, 1 week away from my favorite time of year. Yes. 1 week away from Christmas Eve. I love it. I love it. I love it, everybody. And I pray that everyone, whatever your religious or spiritual commitment, I hope that you have really felt the love that percolates throughout this season. I'm Santita Jackson. Let's get right to it. What are the Democrats going to do? Are they going to build back better? Are they going to pass voting rights? Are they going to do the things that they promised to do when they ran in 2020? And if they do it, what's going to happen? If they don't do it, what's going to happen? If not now, when? If not them, who? Let's talk about this at 773-763-9278, 773-763-9278. Coming up at the end of the show, Reverend Dr. Marshall Hatch will be giving us some good news. Let's get to some of these headlines. Minneapolis, we are going to see a high of 22 degrees today and cloudy. In Chicago, 38 degrees, mostly sunny. The Dow closed down 29 points yesterday. The NASDAQ closed down 385 points. And the S&P 500 closed down 41 points. Tonight, the Timberwolves will be facing off against the Lakers in the NBA. The Bulls are still off, observing those COVID protocols. Send them your prayers, everybody. And all of these sports teams that are being bedeviled by COVID outbreaks at this time. The NFL, well, we saw some good football last night. Kansas City was triumphant over the Chargers, 34-28. Then tonight in the NHL, Chicago will be facing off against the Predators. But last night, the Wild fell to the Sabres. The Sabres 3, the Wild 2, everybody. What about abortion rights. Well, Supreme Court Justice Neil Gorsuch has sent the controversial Texas abortion law to a conservative federal appeals court to determine next steps, a move that all but suspends abortion rights in the state and perpetuates concerns that the high court could gut the tenets of Roe v. Wade. What do you think is going to happen? Call me at 773-763-9278. As we have passed the 800,000 person mark, people who have died from COVID-19 in the United States, President Biden is warning of a winter of severe illness and death. He said that yesterday for those not vaccinated against COVID-19 amid a wave of Delta infections and as new Omicron infections are beginning to surge in the United States of America. What are you doing to protect yourselves, everybody? Not just the vaccinated, the unvaccinated. Are you washing your hands? Are you wearing your masks? Are you doing all the things you need to do to prevent infection? Think about that. Go to drnina.preventionist, drnina.preventionist on Instagram so you can know how you can actually protect yourself. The CDC is recommending that Pfizer and Moderna vaccines are better than the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. Indeed, they're recommending that Americans choose to receive one of these vaccines, Pfizer or Moderna, over the Johnson & Johnson vaccine because of sometimes fatal cases of blood clotting. Everybody, what about Claudette Colvin? Who was Claudette Colvin? Who is she? Well, she and Rosa Parks did the same thing in the same year in 1955. But one person went on to, well, I guess, public acclaim, and the other ended up with a record. That's right. This 15-year-old high school student refused to move to the back of the bus months before Mrs. Parks did. And both courageous and Mrs. Parks, as I said, went on to greater glory, although she was chased out of Montgomery, everybody. That's right. It became unsafe for her to stay there. In fact, she ended up in Detroit working for Congressman John Conyers, who gave her a job and kept her out of poverty. Think about that. Think of how we treat our heroes. Well, this heroine of ours has had a record for 66 years. 66 years. And it was Judge Calvin Williams, an African American who was not even born when she did this heroic act. He said, I want to thank you for your courage. Your courageous act. I want to, on behalf of myself and all of the judges of Montgomery, offer my apology for an injustice that was perpetrated upon you. That is keeping her with a record for 66 years. When she did this in 1955, he continued, there were no African-American judges in Montgomery. And now I'm one of several African-American judges in Montgomery. And so the remarkable thing is that I sit in a position to look and do something judicious in a judicious way to correct an injustice that was perpetrated against her so long ago that never should have happened. That's the uniqueness of this whole circumstance, that you stood up for right, and now I'm the beneficiary and byproduct of that. And I can correct that wrong that was done to her. That's the significance of it. And so with that, this judge expunged her record, and she, as she said, thank you, Frankie Lyman and the teenagers. I am now no longer a juvenile delinquent. God bless you, Claudette Colvin, and thank you for making our lives so much better. We wouldn't be here, black, white, brown, yellow, or red, without you. You made America and the world a better place. God bless you. All right, everybody, how can we build back better? What are we going to do? What are we going to do? We've been talking with you, Attorney Darrell Jones, Chairman of the Transformative Justice Coalition, and Dwight McKee. And of course, we've got our own Cook County Commissioner, Brandon Johnson, who has his own show here on WCPT every Sunday, right after Keep Hope Alive. Isn't that right, Commissioner Brandon Johnson? Yes.
Absolutely. I know better than that, Santita. Good morning.
Of course, because I pull you as a guest on the show, too. What time can we catch you here on WCPT?
So we're there every single Sunday, 9 a.m. Central Standard Time. And we pretty much just listen to your show and Reverend, and we just carry it on for a third hour.
Love it. How about that? We love him. You know what? Let me start with you, Attorney Darrell Jones, Chair of the Transformative Justice Coalition, because really at the center of your work with the iconic Attorney Barbara Arnwine, and she, of course, is a former executive director of the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights Under Law. There is no higher tree in the forest, someone who protects our voting rights. She does this year in, year out, in or out of season, whether it's popular or not. And we want to thank you for joining her in this work. Attorney Daryl Jones, why are we still arguing over the protection of our voting rights? This is something we voted for. I mean, we thought after all this marching and whatnot last year that we wouldn't be here. I mean, why are we here? What's going on? And if we don't do something about this, what's going to happen, Attorney Jones?
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right, Santita. We thought that, after all the marching, all the movement that went across this country, the election that occurred, the success for those that were voting rights supporters in the office, that we would not be in a position now, nearly a year later, of having to demand that voting rights legislation be enacted. But that's where we find ourselves. And part of the reason that has been given was that there were some that had some misgivings, did not want to do anything with regards to filibuster. They didn't want to mess it. It was, sort of held in such regard that they did not want to do anything regarding the filibuster. Well, that now has changed because we know, a week or so ago that they are now doing exceptions to the filibuster. There have been historical exceptions to the filibuster. So that argument now has fallen on deaf ears. And so now we're starting to see some progress that's actually occurring with regards to voting rights. One of the concerns is this, though. We know that North Carolina, we know that Texas, we know that there are several states that are going forward with all kinds of legislation now and redistricting areas now that are, will have the effect of disempowering people of color, putting districts together where you'll have two blacks that once held two seats, having them just run against each other, or two people of color running against each other, rather than having the power of multiple districts. So that's what's happening. One of the scarier pieces to that is that as these districts are created and as the redistricting laws and legislation goes into place, every state that does it, we're not going to be able to undo what's being done. And that's the concern. That's the urgency, the fierce urgency, as they say, of now.
Well, what do you mean we can't undo? What do you mean by that?
It can't be remedial. You can't go back and redo it. The district will be in place, and you'll be out there. You'll be the district that's created will be there for at least the next 10 years. So you're going to be stuck for that 10-year period of the redistricting that is put in place. So that's what the fear is of not having the Freedom to Vote Act and the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act put in place. We know that the Freedom to Vote Act certainly will address a lot of those issues with regards to redistricting, with regards to all the proportionment and everything else in voting. But it also addresses more basic things, because it's also going to address, it'll be a uniformity across the country of voting rights. Being certain that you have time to vote, that you have early voting. All of that will be in place, and all of that becomes really, really important with regards to what's happening here. It addresses things like they're doing in Florida and Georgia now, where they're saying that you can't hand out food and water to people that are waiting in long lines that were created because they closed polls in minority areas that are waiting to vote. So they made that unlawful. So the Freedom to Vote Act would address that. This is the type of things that this is the reason for the urgency to get this done now. It's not simply the gerrymandering that's going on with the redistricting, but it's also the impediments that are putting up to stop people from being able to easily access the right to vote. The one thing that most people are most proud about the United States and about America is that we vote, and we have it, make it easy to vote, make it as easy as possible to vote. What is happening now is that we're seeing a reversal of that. They're trying to make it very difficult to vote, trying to suppress the vote out of that minority community by using these policies that we're talking about now. And we haven't even started talking about the restoration of rights for felons and what's happening in that regard. It's just, there's just so much that's going on in the voting rights world. We know that the Freedom to Vote Act and the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act combined will be able to address all of these issues that are out there. But if they're not there, we're going to really see a run on our democracy like we've never seen before.
We're talking with Attorney Darrell Jones, chair of the Transformative Justice Coalition, about what the Democrats need to do. Now we're seeing President Biden say, well, we've got to do something about these voting rights. You're absolutely right, because he heard Senator Raphael Warnock on that floor of the Senate, whose seat is up right now. And Raphael Warnock knows, because he knows numbers, and he is the pastor of one of the most iconic and biggest black churches in the United States. He knows what he's looking at. He knows these people need him to deliver. This is heat that he's feeling. But he also knows his people won't be able to vote. We saw what happened with Stacey Abrams. This is ridiculous. And we should not be begging for a need. This is not a desire. This is a need. Everybody needs their voting rights ensured. And I tell you what, if black people do not have our voting rights ensured, and brown people, then women are behind that. And you just keep on going and going, keep on going down this rabbit hole. Cook County Commissioner Brandon Johnson, your thoughts about this, because you run for office and you are, of course, on WCPT every Sunday at 9 a.m. Central Standard Time. I urge you all to listen to his show. It's brilliant. Talk to us. What do you make of this bottleneck that the Democrats are we're clogged. I mean, how does that impact you in Chicago at the county level?
Well, first of all, Santita, again, good morning and good morning to the panel. This is, a very, treacherous time that we're living in right now. And the attorney made it very clear, articulating the urgency of this moment. And quite frankly, what it highlights is the fact that there is a real fear of political power that comes from the experience and the pain of black folks, brown folks, as you mentioned, and also women. And that threat, of course, is a threat to what Dr. King referred to as one of the three evils, and that is capitalism. What is unfortunate, though, is that for so long, the Democratic Party and its leadership has capitulated to the interests of corporations. And that type of capitulation has brought us to this moment. And so this is why now you have, the fact that you actually have a term, Santita, for corporate or moderate Democrats, speaks to the lack of concern or even effort to respond to the interests of working class families. And so the impact that we're experiencing right here in the state of Illinois, in Chicago and Cook County, is that voter suppression, it manifests in multiple ways. There's the very obvious strain on a democracy when you make it harder for people to vote. There's also a strain when you actually do vote for people who say and claim to have the interest of working people, and they don't deliver on those promises or those claims that they've made while they were campaigning. What that does is it sucks the life and the energy out of people who would otherwise be enthusiastic about casting a vote. And so you have these multiple fronts here. You have the very obvious, blatant attack against democracy, making it impossible, extremely difficult for us to be able to actually cast a vote. And then you have the hope and dreams that live within people's ideology, or it lives within their principles and their values. And when those values and principles are not being carried out legislatively, it has consequences politically. And again, these corporate folks, I think, which was expressed earlier, is that the benefit that they experience by straining an economy, making it impossible for progressive policies to move through, not to mention people who actually support progressive policies to actually run for office and actually get elected. All of this complicates the political economy that we're in right now. And it's what we're seeing here in Chicago and Cook County, and this is something that we have to continue to work to disrupt, is that there is a real hopelessness and a despair that exists within the electorate. The abject poverty that has made so many families in Illinois isolated. And I know we're going to get into it, but the fact that you have a political system that is working to zero out a credit that actually can lift children and families out of poverty, that I'm at a loss for words.
Wait. You know why you're at a loss for words? Because you got to go into Auburn and explain to these people why they need to vote for a party that would not protect that.
Mm-hmm.
Boom.
That's exactly right. And so this is where, and I've been a harsh critic, essentially, you know me for at least for the last 12 years. I've been a pretty harsh critic of the Democratic Party, primarily because, again, right here in the city of Chicago, we had to fight, Santita, to make democracy available for a school board. A 150-year history here in Chicago where families have never been able to have the type of self-determination for the outcome of children's education. Now, we'll have that now, but we had to fight. We had to go on hunger strikes. We had to, take political strikes. We had to march. We had to protest. Families literally starved themselves to keep schools open. And this is happening in a city, in a county, in a state that has been run by Democrats. And so it's why these conversations are critical, because I know we like to have these partisan conversations and we want to highlight who we believe the boogie women or the boogie men are. But the truth of the matter is you have a hyper concentration of poverty that exists in communities that are not just urban centers, if you will. You're seeing this in rural America. Mm-hmm. And whether it's a Republican or a Democrat, both groups have worked tirelessly to curtail hope and promise, and they've curtailed that by not delivering on promises that they have made. They also have done this by simply creating a stratified structure that places one community against the next. And again, as we had to fight here in the city of Chicago to get Mayor Lori Lightfoot, Mayor Rahm Emanuel, neither one of them supported expanding democracy here in the city of Chicago. We had to fight through it. We'll have it in 2 years, and then we'll have a fully elected one in a couple of years past that. But we're fighting the interests of corporations. The last thing that I'll say, Santita, of just how real this is. One of the wealthiest individuals on the entire planet, Ken Griffin, right here in the state of Illinois, spent hundreds of millions of dollars to prevent wealthy folks in this state from paying their fair share in taxes. Mm-hmm. This is also the same Ken Griffin who spent hundreds of millions of dollars to force schools to close down in the city of Chicago. This is also the same Ken Griffin who was prepared to spend hundreds of millions of dollars, and he spent it in both parties, to stop the type of progressive policies that we are finally beginning to see here in the state of Illinois. These individuals have clearly unfettered access to the highest structures in our economy, from business community to government. And that outsized voice is working hard to crush the spirit of people who have a long history of bringing not just democracy in this country, but bringing the type of hope that that we all benefit from. And of course, and that is, represents the district that I represent as Black and brown and working class families. And that we cannot allow to happen. But we have to certainly be vigilant and committed to the cause, because clearly there are folks that still fear our power, and they're doing everything within their ability to squash ours.
But the Democrats have always done that here in Chicago. Now, I have to tell you, you know how you and I are. I cannot put Mayor Lightfoot in the same basket as Mayor Rahm Emanuel. I can't do it. That having been said, are there things that everybody can do better? Absolutely. But we have to look at the fact that we have a bipartisan betrayal. Cook County Commissioner Brandon Johnson, which is what you're speaking to. We have to look at a bipartisan betrayal. Dr. D, Dwight McKee, Attorney Darrell Jones. It's a bipartisan betrayal. Both parties protect the oligarchs. They don't protect you. It doesn't have to be. What you have to do is call 202-224-3121 and call your representatives in the lower and upper house and let them know that you want Build Back Better. Let them know that you want voting rights. Let them know that you want what you want, and not what you want, what you need. And that if they don't vote for your needs, you will vote them out. And you have to mean it. You have to mean it. All of these parties, they are protecting the oligarchs and not protecting you. And you ought to be tired of it.
10.
In a pandemic, we haven't had a discussion about Medicare for all. Really?
5.
Are you serious? We need access to, everybody needs equal access to equal high quality health care. We don't need to go broke trying to stay healthy. Why aren't we having that discussion? Why are we not having the discussions about that which we need? We're talking about who we want. That's a childish discussion. Let's grow up, everybody. Grow up in our politics. More of the Santita Jackson Show in just a few minutes. I cannot wait to hear your take on this, Dr. D, on the other side of the break. The Santita Jackson Show. Back in just a minute. Thank you so much. Stay right there, everybody. Ooh, I'm trying to type on this iPad. Oh, it's too much. Oh, Brandon, I don't know. Ugh. Are you on Facebook, Brandon, when you do your show?
I am. I do Facebook as well.
Well, baby, always tell people that. What's your page? Are you on the WCPT page?
No, I use, thank you, Cynthia. I do the WCPT Facebook page. One day I'll be able to upgrade and have a friends on page like you.
No. All you have to do is, honey, all you have to do is pop out your phone and put it on a tripod and stream it. You should do that.
I will. Apparently, people still want to hear what we have to say. I think your point is well taken, Santita. What the point that I was trying to draw is that, particularly around elected representative school board, as much as we even celebrate, the late great Harold Washington, I've had this conversation with the former alderperson and radio host Cliff Kelly. Did very similar things, right? Where Harold ran on elected school board in the 80s and then became mayor and was like, well, not so fast.
Well, remember, Harold Washington, to be fair, he was a machine guy. Okay? People forget, and people try to make him what he was actually not. He was a product of the machine, but the machine threw him out. And Georgia and Lou Palmer picked him up, and literally he slept on their sofa. And they encouraged him back. They brought him back to life. And they got him after he and Gus Savage used to run every year. Dwight, you are my witness. They ran every election and they lost. And Gus Savage lost all the time. But in 1980, they both won their congressional seats. Shocked everybody. And once they got those seats, when we had the protest of Chicago Fest in 1982, Reverend Jackson and others said, look, the person we need to get a black mayor out of this, because the way Jane Byrne and the white power structure has behaved with black women and black families in public housing, shameful. Harold Washington did not want to run. And he said, you know what we're going to do? He said, register, I think, 100,000 people and 50,000 people and raise $100,000. We registered more than 100,000 people and raised hundreds of thousands of dollars. And really, Mr. Gardner from Soft Sheen was central to those efforts. And my point is, even when my brother was in Congress, he always had to run against the party, Brandon. I mean, he never got support from the mainstream Democratic Party. He was always an outsider, always.
Yeah.
All the progressives are always outsiders.
I think the pressure point that I think there's part that you lifted up that I'm trying to express is that, whether it's Mayor Harold Washington, Lori Lightfoot or Rahm Emanuel, is that there are
1 minute
in this city, of course, that are going to continue to try to work to maintain their power, right? And we've seen that play out in education, I think, more than anything. You've seen that play out in housing a little bit as well.
Mm-hmm.
But not to put either none of them in the same category. But when it comes to education in Chicago, obviously that's a little more personal for me.
Sure.
But I know that all three of them work against creating democracy, and I think that has more to do with the interests of corporations that want to continue to control the outcome of our children. And that's just a fight that we have to wage against both interests, right?
I'm saying we have to do that.
The same interest.
We have to do that. Look, I have skin in the game. I'm a product of the Chicago public school system from kindergarten through 12. Okay, period, without interruption.
My son wants to go to your alma mater too.
Whitney Young.
Whitney Young too. So
where else can he go? Come on.
5 seconds.
Is there another school? What?
We can change the world, change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world.
everybody, let's change the world and let us talk about what the Democrats need to do to make your life better, to change your world. Call us at 773-763-9278. We've got the chairman of the Trust Transformative Justice Coalition, Darrell Jones, with us today. Cook County Commissioner Brandon Johnson is with us, of course, at 9 o'clock Central Standard Time every Sunday. You can hear him here on WCPT, and he streams on WCPT's Facebook page, as do I. And so we want you to check him out because he gives you a great, great show. As you can hear, he's absolutely brilliant. And I will say, you do not have a more dedicated, more faithful public servant than Mr. Johnson, a teacher in our classrooms in our Chicago public schools. Good morning, Mr. Johnson. And of course,
hey, good morning. I appreciate that. Just dropped off my 3 children at the Chicago public schools. We're looking forward to 2:45 today. Everybody is.
Well, see, that's how times change. For me, it was 3:15, 2:45 when I got to high school. Hello. Let me before I get to you, Dr. D, to get your reaction to where the Democrats are and where we all need to be. We've got celebrations by us. Everybody, today is the last day you can get these orders in. I've got to get my order in after the show. My banana pudding, I think my caramel cake, and I don't know what hot dish I'm going to get, but I'm going to get something because some of the best food in the world I get from Celebrations by Us from Chaparral. Chaparral, you're getting calls from all over the country. Hope you can get all this food out in time. What do you have to offer?
Yes, Santita, and thank you so much for taking our call. I tell you, Santita, today is the last day, but I want to thank your listening audience who has been calling us to place their orders, and I am so grateful and blessed to have this opportunity to be able to service them. Now, we are having our Christmas ham, our pot roast, as well as also our smothered chicken, smothered beef, as well as also our lamb chops, as well as also our mac and cheese, our masticholi, our banana pudding, our peach cobbler, as well as also our caramel cakes and red velvet cakes and German chocolate cakes. They're all on the list this Christmas. And let's not forget our Christmas cookies. So give us a call at 708-526-4546. That's 708-526-4546. Or you can also reach us at celebrationsbyus.org. Celebrationsbyus.org. We're taking your orders till 5 o'clock tonight for the Christmas dinners. And if you need anything, please don't hesitate to give us a call. 708-526-4546. Thank you, Santita. And before I let you go, you know I always got to give my little bit about your topics because these are topics. Listen, this question is really for Darrell Jones. Because I am an avid listener, I am a supporter of the Democratic Party. I want to make that clear. But I am very critical of what is happening because we're fighting against ourselves. That's the way I see it in the Democratic Party. So I want to ask the question because we have the Transformative Justice League as well as also Black Voters Matter and a lot of Black groups that really went hard for Biden. What are we willing to do to force him to vote for George Floyd Act, to support the Voting Rights Act, and the things that he promised? Are we going to tell our people to go out here and hold our nose again in 2022 and vote Democratic? Or are we willing to say we're going to sit down?
Attorney Jones?
Yeah, thank you for the question, Chaparral. And just to let you know, just by byproduct, I just pulled up Celebrations by Us to start getting ready to place my order. Get my food together.
Oh, my word. You are not going to be disappointed. Trust me.
Well, I'm looking forward to the caramel cake. I heard you talking about the caramel cake. It got me all worked up.
Gosh, that's so good. Yes. Okay.
But it's an excellent question that you ask. And what we know right now is this, is that President Biden has taken the baton, and he is indicating that he's going to, now start, beating the bush for the Voting Rights Act and to get the passage of the Freedom to Vote Act, as well as the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act. And, what the Black Voters Matters, as well as the Transforming Justice Coalition, Rainbow Push, and several of our partners, the Poor People's Campaign, what we all have been doing is that we've been in the streets pushing him. And I think that, it has been the collective buildup that we've done over this nearly a year, if not more, pushing that has finally gotten us to the point that it's at the front. And right now, we just need to get it done. And we're going to continue to push to get it done in 2021. We're not going to tell people to sit at home and not vote because, that's not how democracy works. But what we will tell people is that you need to vote your interests and be certain that your interest is in place. And that's what we're pushing right now.
Did that help you, Chick Pearl? Well,
It does, Santita.
Yes.
But I think that we have to, the Democrats don't fear Black people. They don't fear that we're going to not vote for them. They are almost certain that we're going to support them no matter how they mess with us in our agenda. And I'm being I almost said another word, but
thank you.
They do not care about, they how they say, they be pissing on you.
Go, Chaparral. Thank you. We were almost there. Oh, my word. Chaparral, stay right there. No, Chaparral, stay right there because I think. No, hold on, because I think you have a partner here. We haven't heard from Dwight McKee, Dr. D yet. Dwight, you jump in here. You all bomb through us this morning and use nice language. Thank you. Thank you.
We have to start believing in mythology, and that's what we live in. Is that the fact of the matter is that America is a total of European ethnic groups that move over here to find their piece of the rock. And for many of these groups, their first entree into the piece of the rock is through public policy, is through them having jobs in the public sector. And so when you look at how politics are made up, Democratic Party mostly, including the Republican Party, especially in Chicago, is you have certain ethnic groups who make their living off of drinking out the political vine. The Irish make their living out of the police department, and they're living out of the fire department. And they have for 150 years. The Polish make their living off of the public sector. The Greeks make their living off their part of the public sector. And so the ones that we compete against, which are these ethnic groups who come from Europe to set up their own little kingdoms, are the ones that lock us out. They take those of us who are able to make it to public office and siphon us off to become just an extension of their interests rather than ours. And so we end up at the bottom of the barrel. We have the least to work with. When we talk about democracy, we've never been in a democracy. The last 150 years, the black codes have always been about taking away our right to vote. The March on Selma, the Pettus Bridge has always been about these ethnic groups beating us down to keep us from voting. For the school system, for most of us, the school system is not black teachers having a right to teach our children to vote, to educate our children. It is the protection of these white, young, liberal groups who had nowhere to work because of the Depression, who were able to get into the public sector, to work for 5 years, to give them a way into the economy. And in 5 years after they scoop up their little money, they get moved into the private sector. And so what we're protecting is these little fringe groups, mostly white women, right to be able to make a living at our expense. We have to stop lying to ourselves and our children. This has never been about democracy. It has always been about these white ethnic groups having the right to be able to operate in the public sector at our expense, and we get locked out. And we're locked out by every group that comes in. We're locked out by the Mexicans. We're locked out by the Irish. We're locked out by the Polish. Until we understand how the system works, we will always be locked out.
And to understand that they are used to lock us out, and they're used for us to keep fighting each other instead of fighting the power. Thank you, public enemy. Daniel Perez says the Democrats also lie about immigration reform, minimum wage, voting rights. He is PO'd due to the betrayal, and that is a really big deal. That's a big deal. I mean, you've got Daniel, you got a whole lot of people out here. Shapiro, before I go back to the calls, what were you going to say?
I was going to say, Santita, just like what Daniel said, we are pissed off.
Thank you, Shapiro.
Pissed off because of the fact that we are constantly given. This well over here is dry. I mean, I literally held my nose so hard, I almost drowned when y'all told me to vote for Biden because I knew that he didn't want anything that he was promising. And y'all know it too. All the activists who are promoting, please vote for Biden, he had Claiborne on there crying and stuff, talking about something. Joe know us, and Joe don't know us because Joe should know that we need some damn money.
He knows we're going to vote for him. He knew we were going to vote for him. He knew that. He knew. No, people know us.
And they constantly take us for granted. And then throw us away like a dirty sock. And then they come back and it's 2 weeks. Now, mind you, they come back 2 weeks before the election and say, can I get your vote again? I promise. I ain't gonna lie to you again. This time I'm for real. I am not gonna be a doorknob no more.
Thank you.
They just keep turning and turning and turning.
And
I think until we actually stand up and say, right now, I think all the progressives and the CBC need to hold all their votes until they push it. But, we don't even have that backing. We don't even have that backbone to say, no, we're not doing this. The progressives tried to do it. They told you what was going to happen with Build Back Better. And then Biden went in there with his slick butt and say, I'm going to get him to, and now Manchin backing out. Everybody needs to be in West Virginia all Christmas break.
That's true. Attorney Jones?
Yeah, and you're absolutely right, Shapiro. West Virginia is really very active, and there are a lot of people that are out there protesting outside of Manchin's office. But one of the things that you said that I really want to lift up and be certain that people are aware of, you're talking about the black and brown vote, sitting it out and showing the impact that it can have. And I think that, a message was sent during the last Virginia election for governor that just went through. The black vote did sit back. They did not come out in numbers. And as a result, the Terry McCullough, who was the Democrat that was running, was not elected. Mm-hmm. And I think that was a wake-up call with regards to whether or not black voters will simply show up and vote for a party. And it was a demonstration that nothing is guaranteed. So, I think that, your point is certainly well-founded with regards to, saying that we need a return on the investment. You're asking us to put you first.
But Daryl, I think but if they don't dig into the nuances of what happened to Terry McAuliffe, they're going to miss that too, because you had a black lieutenant governor who was railroaded on foolishness, whose reputation was smeared. Then they brought 2 black women up to stand in his way as he was trying to really regain his reputation. And mind you, the governor, who had in medical school the Klansman's outfit and all the racist outfits. No, nobody's even talking about that anymore. But Justin Fairfax was smeared, and black people in Virginia did not appreciate it. And as you correctly pointed out, Attorney Jones, black folks didn't vote for Terry McAuliffe. They said enough. Enough. Dwight McKee, I've got about a minute. I'm going to give everybody a minute before we bring up Pastor Hatch. Dwight McKee, your thoughts, and we can stay over just for a couple of minutes on the other side on the Santita Jackson and the Santita Jackson show on YouTube, and so we can just close out this conversation properly. But 1 minute, Dwight, it belongs to you.
It's just business as usual. And that's why I say that we have to, if we think that these people are going to deliver us or bring us into the process, then we don't understand what we're dealing with. We have to be able to put everything on the line. We have to be able to storm the Bastille. We have to be able to bring the process to a halt. That everybody has a piece of the rock, because nobody has a piece of the rock. Until we're willing to do that, as long as we think that these people's goodwill is going to be the solution to our problem, we're going to be in political escrow, which is what we've been for the last 150 years. If we think these Irish are going to give up the police department and not be able to pay their children's tuition, we don't understand how this works. If we think these Mexicans can allow us to have these jobs in the public service and sanitation or whatever they are, without us fighting to the bitter end, we don't understand how this thing works. If we think that Burke and the guys who deal with the legal departments, if we think that they're going to let us just come in and have the jobs that their whole wards have depended on for 40 and 50 years without a big, major humbug, we don't understand how this thing works.
Right.
These people, these ethnic groups live off of these public service jobs, and it's in their interest to lock us out, and that's who makes sure we're locked out. And because we're the only ones that keep talking about this democracy, we're the only ones talk about, what?
No, I hear you, but I have to move on to Pastor Hatch. But I hear you. I mean, but I think that Black people talk about the democracy because that is the ideal, and I'm going to hold to that too. That having been said, you know what? I don't want to lock anybody out. The thing is, I want us to get. Well, no, but my point is, I want us to get locked in. But the only way that we're going to do that is to understand how politics really works, which is your point. This is about power. You know, that's why you have to respect your organizations, because your organizations are your lobbyists. That's why you need to support your organizations, all of them. They lobby for you so you can have a seat at the table so that you are not on the menu, getting devoured. But no, I gotta. You know me. Hold on. Let me go to you, Dwight. I gotta go to Commissioner Brandon Johnson. Commissioner Johnson, 30 seconds. We will see you here on WCPT at 9 o'clock on Sunday. But your closing thoughts.
Yeah, just real quick, and I think the local elections matter, too. And I think as much as we have to continue to pay attention to federal level, we do have local elections, county board races, state reps, state senators. I mean, aldermanic seats, trustees, if you live in villages. And so I think we have to continue to be, committed to our principles and our values. And of course, continue to organize and push and be unapologetic about our fight for righteousness. Just in the congressional district, one of the largest Black congressional districts in the country, Congressman Rush, 88% of the children there living in poverty. The child tax credit would lift half of those families at the very least out of poverty. And so we need to make sure that those dollars are coming to local bodies of government, like the one that I represent at the county level. We have to distribute that in an equitable way.
Absolutely.
So that we continue to deal with the structural inequalities that exist. Thank you, Santita.
Absolutely. 9 o'clock on Sundays, on WCPT. Commissioner Brandon Johnson show here is right here on WCPT. The last 30 seconds before we go to good news. Attorney Darrell Jones, Transformative Justice Coalition, of course, send our love to the brilliant attorney Barbara Arnwine. The last 30 seconds.
Absolutely will do, Santita. Folks, we need you to call 202-224-3121, 202-224-3121, and tell the Senate to pass the Freedom to Vote Act. Folks, this is the most impressive time that we've ever had. You know, they're trying to stop and make it more difficult for absentee ballot applications to be received by people. They're trying to make it more difficult for the absentee voting ballot to be returned with new requirements. Please, it's important. 202-224-3121. Call. Tell them to pass the Freedom to Vote Act. Tell them to pass the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act. And lastly, but not least, please keep the Arbery family in your prayers. We have the sentencing coming up in Glenn County on January the 7th at 9 a.m. at the Glenn County Superior Court. Thank you so much, Santita.
I'm already claiming you right now so that we can talk about that case and get the latest on what's happening with the prosecutor who is going to be tried, Jackie Johnson. There's so much that is still really being dealt with in that case in Brunswick, Georgia. But Reverend Dr. Marshall Hatch, the last 3.5 minutes belong to you. What's the good news?
Santita Jackson, can you hear me? All right, praise God. Listening to the show today, clear to me that there are two things that we have to fight against. One is fear, and the other one is despair. As we talked about the coronavirus today, it was clear to me that, you know, I fear most that how afraid that we are, knowing that when we're
everything.
Afraid, we control. Yes. And then, of course, the despair when we talk about the politics. You know, where is the power? And I think the real story of Christmas speaks to our fears and our despair. That Luke chapter 2 is an incredible story, incredible literature, incredible truth. It begins with the name of the most famous man in the world, Caesar Augustus. Everybody knew his name. And then somewhere toward the end of the chapter, a baby is born, a name that no one would know at the time that baby is born. And his name was called Jesus. And the sign that the shepherds were told to look for, that God is present with us, that we need not fear nor despair, is that the baby literally be wrapped in rags in a barn, lying on a feeding trough. And so it's clear in Luke that at the beginning of that chapter is the name everybody would know, Caesar Augustus, that day. And then the name nobody would know on the day he was born. But today, everybody knows the name of Jesus. Caesar Augustus, not so much. And it literally means the power is in us, because the baby has rags on, but it's clear it's not what the baby has on, but it's what is in the baby. And the power is in us. And ultimately, the gospel of Jesus would be that the Spirit is in us, that God is in us. And we need not fear, we need not despair. We close our eyes, we look up, but really, God is within us. And we have the power. We need not fear nor despair. We can think rationally, we can pray, we can look to each other. We can look to the God within and know that that kingdom is within. And we need not fear nor despair. The good news is the power is in us to change everything around us. God bless you, Santita.
Ooh, God bless you. We needed that today. The fear, the despair. Need not fear. False evidence appearing real. COVID is real, everybody.
Yeah.
But what is also real is that you can protect yourself. Go to drnina.preventionist so that you can find out how to wash your hands, the way you should conduct home visits, how should people behave, what should they be doing in your house, how should you be walking through your Christmas and holiday dinners. She talks about all of that at drnina.preventionist. I want to thank you, Attorney Darrell Jones, for all of the magnificent work that you do. Whether the cameras are there or not, and especially when the cameras are not there. You and Attorney Barbara Arnwine and the Transformative Justice Coalition go into these places. We need to have a light where there is nothing but the lack of light. The lack of light. And I want to thank you for that work. And can't wait to have you next week so you can get us caught up on what's happening in Brunswick with the Ahmaud Arbery case, because that is still ongoing, everybody. We've got to see what's going to happen with this prosecutor who tried to thwart justice and the other lawyers who tried to stand in the way of justice and the Arbery family. And then Dwight McKee, thank you for all the work that you've done down through the years with our youth and our youth who became adults, from Breadbasket to Fellowship to the Rainbow, to Operation Breadbasket to Operation Push to Rainbow Push to the National Action Network. Your work has been ongoing. And Commissioner Brandon Johnson, what can I say about you? Thank you for all of your work. Thank you for all that you do and all that you have done, from teaching in our schools to being a magnificent husband and father, to being Cook County Commissioner. And who knows what's next? I'm Santita Jackson. Stay right here. I'm going to get some closing thoughts from this magnificent panel. And go to celebrationsbyus.org so you can get those Christmas vittles in. That's what I'm going to do after I get off the phone. I'm enjoying you, Attorney Jones, because this is the last day, everybody. I love you. God bless you. I'll see you on Keep Up Alive with Reverend Jesse Jackson on Sunday. Until then, God bless you and have a great day. Does anyone have anything else they want to say while we are still on Facebook and YouTube and Twitter and? Is there anything else anyone else wants to say?
I'll try to say it quickly.
Okay.
Thank you, Reverend Hatch, for that encouraging word. I mean, not sure if you heard, but that's the sentiment that I've been experiencing around the cities, around the county, just this spirit of despair and hopelessness. And, just reminding us that power that we're looking to experience is not just simply in individuals that we elect, but that power is actually inside of us. So I want to appreciate you, Reverend Hatch, for lifting that up. I had a chance to talk with your son last week, too. The work that you all are doing at the Ma'afa Project, and, we're trying to better connect county government to the work that you all are doing. So I just, want to thank you for that. And thank you, Santita, for the space. You almost called me an attorney, which would have increased my student debt by $500,000. So thank you for not doing that.
Almost. No, but I thank you for all that you do. And I thank you, Pastor Hatch, for all that you do. Everyone, thank you. And you know what? Let's get out here and get active. But I tell you, Attorney Jones said call 202-224-3121. 202-224-3121 and call these representatives and tell them that you want Build Back Better. You want it, and you want the child tax credit in it. Don't let Joe Manchin roll over you like this. And he is really standing in for the oligarchs, for corporate America. Goodness gracious, you shouldn't allow this. And don't pay attention to the corporate news, because they are protecting him too. Because they're not letting you know all the conflicts of interest. They're not letting you know that he is an energy mogul, a coal mogul. Yeah, they don't even talk about that. But they're going to run other people out of office on foolishness. I mean, come on, this is crazy. Are you still there, Attorney Jones? Anyway, Dwight, are you there?
Yeah, I just simply say just everything starts with the truth. You know the truth first, and then the truth will set you free. But you got to start with the truth. And the truth is, it's not in anybody else's interest to let us in. We have to fight our way in, and then fight our way to stay in. And I'm not talking about despair, but I'm also not talking about this being deceived by what we're dealing with. We're dealing with people who is in their interest to hold on to what they're trying to hold on to, even if it's at our expense. And we keep getting lower and lower on that totem pole because we keep believing that they see us the way we try to see them, and that's simply not the case.
Well, because we're needy for that. We don't need that. We're needy for it. And that's why the leaders that God has sent to Black people, I am convinced, are spiritual leaders, because they have been in the business of restoration, because we need that. And so what we do have to understand is you need to appreciate a Dr. King while he's living, Vernon Johns while he's living, these people, C.T. Vivian while he's living, these people while they're living, and support their organizations while they're alive. Because they are your lobbyists. They are your lobbyists. And other people, now we're seeing, the study just came out this week, that the Hispanic community, they are pretty much evenly divided between both parties. So guess what? Both parties are going to push to get their vote. But I tell you what, when they go into those parties, they are advocating for their people from the right and the left. Sadly, many black people get into both parties and advocate for themselves. You got to stop doing that. That is not the way power protects itself. Period. Period. That's all. That is what it does. So all of these ethnic groups, they know how this works, at least on an immature level, because it really does not work until it works for all of us. That's the piece that they are missing. And so it is my hope that as black people continue to move into power and really begin to understand it, that we will understand that what you're supposed to do is come in and make a system work for everybody and be fair. I'm not advocating that black people get into power and be unfair. I will never do that. And I don't think anyone here is doing that either. What you have to do is understand how power works. But you do have to advocate for yourself. You do. And that's how this system works. But it has been immature because it also makes us fight each other. And that's ridiculous. Think about it. Think about Crispus Attucks being the first person to die in the American Revolution, and he was an African American. It was a rainbow coalition of a fight. But they racialized our class issues so that people would be fighting against each other. And that's our tragedy. And that's why we have not been able to get off the dime in 400 plus years. And we've got to do better. We have to do right. Because you know what? There's some poor white people too. And almost all of the indigenous community is poor. You just keep on going, and poverty just shouldn't exist. And people need to stop thinking they're special and understand that, you know what? No one is free, and no one is going to be free from poverty until I am. Nothing's going to be right until things are right for the least of these. Jesus said it. That which you've done unto me, that which you've done unto the least of these, you've also done unto me. That's real. Until the least of these will be given fair housing, enough food to eat, equal opportunity to equal access to health care and high quality health care and education, whether it's academic or vocational, until every person gets the opportunity to actualize themselves, we're not going to go anywhere. We're not going to go anywhere. And Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk and everybody at Richard Branson can keep on going up to the space stations, this new world that they building out in space. It's not going to work. Because I don't think God's going to give you all another world to mess up. You need to fix the one that God gave you stewardship over in the first place. How about that? Looking up to the sky, you need to look up at the heavens, and you better humble yourselves and pray, because this ain't working. And if it doesn't work for me, ultimately it will not work for you. I love you, everybody. Dwight, do you have anything to say before we go? All righty. I love you, everybody. Love you, love you, love you, love you. So, boom.
Thank you, Santita. We'll talk to you again soon, okay?
Oh, absolutely.
Merry Christmas. Happy New Year.
Oh, look. Absolutely, because, vacation begins next week. Hallelujah. Oh.
Well earned.
Oh, my gosh. Let me call Matt Cummings now. So, but I love you. Oh, my gosh.
Right.
Yes, since you kind of talked me into this job. Thank you very much.
I know. How about that? We've come a long way, though. It's awesome. You're doing an amazing job. Folks all over the country get a chance to experience not just truth, but in a way that is so clear and so pointed. Gives us so much direction, and it really, keeps us hopeful. As difficult as this is, Santita, you are still lifting up, what's possible. And I think as long as we're doing that, we got a fighting chance. I was told by a friend once that me waking up every day is a revolutionary act. And I'm going to hold to that. I think that's actually very powerful.
That's
so
the
you
truth.
just being here is actually transforming our world. So thank you, Santita.
Well, thank you for transforming our world, and thank you for being a friend, really. Even though now you get me up at 2 o'clock in the morning, but that's okay. I still love you. Okay?
All right. Love you too. Good to hear from you, D. We'll talk to Dwight McKee. We'll talk to you again.
Love you all, everybody. Thank you, Paul, for a great show. All right, everybody. Love you, love you, love you, Pastor Hatch. Love you, love you, love you, love you. Doctors Knighton and Verholden. I love you, love you, love you, love you, love you, Morning Stars. Love you. God bless you, everybody. See ya. That's right. The system's got to work for everybody, including oneself. That's right, Medi. That's right. But the thing is, everything that Black people have done has benefited everybody else, and we need an acknowledgement of that. See, because the only people who cannot be white in this society are Black people. You can be Hispanic and white, you can be indigenous and white, you can be everything in white, but me, I can't do that. So on this racialized injustice, I'm the one who gets slammed all the time. And so I need some allies on the other side, but I'm going to be my own ally. But ultimately, you need to understand that when I get slammed, you'll get slammed too. Everybody does. We got to grow up in our politics, everybody. Nobody wins until everybody gets a chance to win. That's the way it works. We all need the opportunity to win. Level the playing field. Give everybody the right food. Give everybody the right opportunity to train so that when we get on the field, you know what? If I lose, I've lost honestly. That is not the way the system works right now. It is slanted against people of color, in particular Black people. That just needs to stop. Needs to stop. Needs to stop. We need to go in the right direction, not just in another way. So I love you, everybody. I'll see you tomorrow. On Sunday. On Keep Hope Alive with Reverend Jesse Jackson. Love you, Lorraine. Love you, Medi. Love you, Hannah. Love you, Laura. Love you, A.W. Hey, sweetie. Michael Ann. Love you, Kenneth. And Silas. And Daphne. And Linear Bob from the Silicon Valley. Linda. Laura. Robert. Nina. And Nina, what did you order from Chaparral? I know you ordered something. I love you, everybody. I'll see you on Sunday and again, God willing, on Monday on the Santita Jackson.